Autumn means it's harvest time in Iowa, the heart of America's heartland. Farmer Jeff Jorgensen is busy harvesting soybeans. He also grows corn on about 2,000 acres in the southwest corner of the state.
Farming is big business here in Iowa. This state is the largest producer of corn in the country, and it's second only to Illinois in the production of soybeans.
For Jorgensen, whose family's been farming for 4 generations, it's all about keeping his yields as high as he can.
Yield monitors here.
And one of the biggest battles he fights is against weeds.
A weed in the field is going to take moisture, going to take sunlight, nutrients away from the plants surrounding it. And that's why we have to keep clean fields.
But Jorgensen says keeping clean fields has been getting harder and harder. Like many farmers, he relied for years mainly on a herbicide called Roundup that's manufactured by Monsanto. Roundup use exploded in the mid-90s with the introduction of new genetically modified crops that dominate the market today. The crops were engineered to withstand Roundup, so farmers could just spray an entire field and the herbicide would kill the weeds, but not the crops.
Any weed you had in the field, Roundup took care of. Roundup revolutionized weed management for farmers.
Jorgensen says it all worked great for a while. He no longer had to spend lots of time plowing to kill weeds. But over time, Roundup and its generic versions, all of which contain a chemical called glyphosate, stopped working so well.
Simple use of one herbicide recurrently in the system is going to inevitably result in weeds that evolve resistance to that herbicide.
Agronomy professor Mike Owen is a nationally recognized weed expert at Iowa State University in Ames.
It is a widespread and is significant from an economic perspective problem across the Midwest and, dare I say, across agriculture in general.
Owen says it's no mystery why this happened. It can all be explained by evolution. In Iowa, one of the weeds that's evolved to be resistant is called water hemp.
This is giant water hemp, a weed we have down in southwest Iowa that's become more tolerant. This plant, when it's mature, can get 5 to 6 feet tall. Where it's very heavy, you can have yields cut in half, 50% losses.
In Iowa, we would estimate that about 75% of the fields have infestations of common water hemp that are resistant to one or more herbicides.
The weeds are not just a problem in Iowa. In one survey, almost 50% of farmers across the U.S. reported herbicide-resistant weeds in their fields. The problem is worst in the South, where some cotton fields can't be farmed, but the threat is creeping north into the corn and soybean belts. Keep in mind, crop yields in the U.S. are booming, but Mike Owen says it's possible they could be even higher were it not for the weeds. Owen says it's difficult to quantify the damage, but if the weeds start having a significant impact, it could be too late.
We have, if you will, hidden yield losses and thus hidden profit losses on millions and millions of acres in the Midwest. It hasn't gotten to the point, if you will, of a train wreck.
What could happen, or what's at stake if this doesn't get under control?
Well, the train wreck, and that is the inability to produce crops.
Over the last 4 years, the issue started to get more and more attention. Congress held hearings, and the USDA recently announced new measures it's taking to combat the problem, a problem also acknowledged by Monsanto. And now, another major manufacturer has stepped in.
Growers across the country face an increasing problem from resistant and hard-to-control weeds.
Biotech giant Dow AgroSciences recently won federal approval for new genetically modified corn and soybeans and a new herbicide to go with them called Enlist Duo. Dow's promoting it as an answer to the herbicide-resistant weed problem.
These weeds are out of control.
But there's another piece to all of this, and that is whether the herbicides used to control weeds pose health risks for farmers and the rest of us. The Center for Food Safety, a national environmental advocacy group, recently sued the EPA, alleging the agency didn't fully analyze the new herbicide's potential effects on human health and the environment.
The group cites studies that suggest a correlation between pesticides and diseases like non-Hodgkin lymphoma and Parkinson's. Attorney Andrew Kimbrell heads the Center for Food Safety.
They're bad for us, right? Because it's going to mean much more of these toxic herbicides in our food, in our groundwater, in the air.
But in approving the product, the EPA published this document saying its scientists determined, when used according to label directions, Enlist Duo is safe for everyone, including infants, the developing fetus, the elderly, and more highly exposed groups such as agricultural workers. In a statement to the NewsHour, Dow quoted the EPA analysis and added, its new system helps farmers as they struggle to control weeds that impact the food supply while respecting the well-being of both people and the environment. The EPA approved the new product for use only in 6 states so far, and it imposed restrictions: 30-foot buffer zones, no aerial spraying, and no applications in windy conditions. The new product is a mix of the main ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, and a chemical called 2,4-D, used for decades and found in many common lawn care products.
Pretty much anybody can walk into a hardware store and buy a product for use on their lawn that contains this stuff. So if it's so dangerous, why is it so widely available?
This isn't just about 2,4-D. Enlist Duo, the product that's been approved, is also glyphosate. What do they mean together? We know some of the health impacts separately, but what happens when they come together and combine? What does that actually mean for health effects? What does it mean for toxic effects on farmers and applicators?
We have the model system with the EPA reviewing the safety of these herbicides, and my sense is that the evidence says that the herbicides, when used appropriately, are safe.
But even if they are safe, there are serious concerns that weeds could become resistant to the new herbicide, just as they did to Roundup. It's something the EPA is requiring Dow to monitor.
The problem will inevitably get worse unless changes are made.
Changes like relying less on chemicals, and also going back to some of the old ways, like growing crops in the off-season to suppress weeds and removing some weeds mechanically.
Growers thus far have been wanting a new, simple solution. And unfortunately, the industry has not been able to come up with, if you will, another silver bullet.
Farmer Jeff Jorgensen says he thinks the new Dow products expected to come to market this spring will help farmers, especially in the South. To battle his weeds, he's been mixing other herbicides in with Roundup, something Monsanto recommends. But Jorgensen says he knows his system will inevitably have to evolve, just like the weeds.
Are you afraid that your system might stop working?
Oh, there's no question. It will change. There will be a time where it will not have the effect that it does now. After seeing what's happened with Roundup, you always have the worry that whatever chemical program you're using, what will happen if it loses its effectiveness? That is always on farmers' minds, because we need to be able to control the problems that we have in fields.